Hello, good evening, and welcome to the FB4 Daily. It is Wednesday. It is the 4th of September, if I remember rightly. I'm your host, Gav, as always. This show is brought to you by Paddy Power. Paddy Power is a bookmakers. It has a book. It has an app. You can get that on your Android devices, your Apple devices. You can get odds on Liverpool Football Club. You can get odds on the LFC Day Tripper specials within the Paddy Power app. You can get odds on all other football and all other sports aside from that. What are we going to do tonight? Well, tonight I'm starting to look at the other contenders, I suppose, in the league. Probably I'm going to try look at 6 or 7 other clubs apart from Liverpool over the international break, how their summer went, how their season expectations are, how they feel they've progressed or not from last season. With me tonight is a Spurs guest. His name is Flav. He is from the Fighting Cock podcast, which is a Spurs podcast which has been going about 8 years. Flav, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Thank you for having me on.
No problem at all. No problem at all. What we're going to do tonight, Flav, is we're going to have a little look at Spurs last season. As I said, the summer they had, transfer window wise and stuff like that, how their season has started, how you feel it started, and the expectations for the season going ahead with regards to the league, domestic cups, European Cup, and stuff like that. So, here we go, I suppose. Let's take it back to last season. Liverpool met Spurs in the European Cup final on the 4th of June, and for me, neither team really, covered themselves in glory with regards to the performance. But just looking at Spurs last season, did they overachieve in the Champions League and maybe underachieve slightly in the Premier League after being right in it right up till Christmas?
Probably both of those things, really. I think we underachieved in the league because we were concentrating so heavily on that Champions League place. If it wasn't for such a weak top six besides Liverpool and Man City, then we probably wouldn't have qualified for the Champions League this year. But because Arsenal and Man United were so poor, that it meant that we were allowed to limp over the line and put all our eggs in the Champions League basket. And we overachieved in that we managed to beat Man City in the quarterfinal of the Champions League because no one gave us a chance. When we were drawn against City, it was literally the worst draw. I mean, Liverpool was one thing. We had a semi-decent performance against Liverpool, and we thought that if we drew you lot, that there was a chance that we could get through that over 2 legs. Like a small chance, Liverpool would have been favourites. But Man City, given what they are and what they've created and the amount of money that they have behind them, it just seemed like an impossible task. But we played them in the quarterfinals of the Champions League at home, and we managed to win 1-0. And they didn't play that well. It wasn't the Man City that everyone thought. The levels that they've achieved. The team that turned up at White Hart Lane on that evening wasn't what we thought Man City were or are. And we beat them 1-0. And you're thinking, well, 1-0 going into the Etihad is still a difficult task for Tottenham. And I'm sure you watched the game. It was complete madness. We got through that game, and then domestic season was almost like inconsequential because we had Ajax in the semi-finals with a real good chance. Like you guys drew Barcelona, and that was a much harder tie than Ajax. Ajax turned up at White Hart Lane at the time and really played us off the park, beat us in the home leg, and we had to go to the Amsterdam Arena and beat them, and we did. And you talk about overachieving. Spurs have been sort of labelled with this bottle job tag, we bottle these big games. We beat Man City over 2 legs. We beat Ajax coming from behind. Not just 1-0 from home, but they went 2-0 up. We had to score 3 away goals.
Yeah, it was a crazy one.
Yeah, it was madness. So the kind of for us, certainly from my perspective, that wasn't a bottle job mentality. That was a winning mentality, and we got through to the final. And Liverpool didn't play how we expected them to play. Klopp's game management was impeccable. He did exactly the right thing to nullify Tottenham. He took away our ace cards, which was that if you come out and play against us, we have the quality to damage you. And he just didn't allow us to do it. He gave us possession, which we didn't expect. None of us expected. And in possession, we couldn't do anything because your back line was just 10 out of 10. Van Dijk, we know how good he is, but he was as good as everyone thinks he could be on that night, and was a massive factor in you lifting your 6th title in Europe.
The game for me, it was very hard to assess at the time of the game because it's a European Cup final, and Liverpool were there the season before, and probably played better in that game against Real Madrid than they did against Spurs and lost it. And the thing about it was, when you go back and look afterwards, like you said, Klopp's game management, he clearly decides it's extremely hot. It's been a long season for both teams. There's been a 3-week break, so there's going to be a little bit of rustiness there. And like you say, I think the biggest thing you tried to nullify was Son, because he's so intelligent on the break. He not that he'll run beyond your defenders every time, but he finds great space. I seen it against Arsenal at the weekend on the break. Spurs could be 3 attackers against 5 defenders, and when the ball got to Son, he seemed to have 15 yards of space around him. He's a fantastic footballer, by the way, an absolutely fantastic footballer. But I think Liverpool's experience, even though Spurs has had a great run in that European Cup and Champions League, or as we call it, I think Liverpool's experience from the year before just seen them through in the final game. The atmosphere in Madrid was unbelievable. Both sets of fans were impeccably behaved. It was a great advert for English football and European football. But obviously there had to be one winner and one loser. But going into the summer, like, I'm getting loads of questions in here, like about Jan Vertonghen. I'm getting questions about Sanchez at right back and stuff like that, and I will get into a couple of things as we go on to this season. But the summer comes for Spurs, and like Liverpool were expected to spend a lot of money. They were linked with a lot of top end players, and would we go out and from a position of strength, would we strengthen, stuff like that was said. And I for one wanted to see us bring in 1 or 2 players and really strengthen this squad. But Klopp decided, a bit like what Spurs done last year, he was going to keep his powder dry this summer and trust the squad he had. Spurs go out and they sign Ndombele from Lyon. They sign is it
Lo
Celso from Betis, and they took, isn't it the young lad from Leeds that went back on loan? Am I right?
Jack Clark.
Jack Clark, he's gone back on loan, isn't that correct?
And Ryan Sessegnon as well.
And Sessegnon, obviously, from Fulham towards the end of the English transfer window. Were you happy with what he done? Because for me, looking from the outside in, I'd still have concerns over what the Spurs squad. But were you happy with what he done when it came to the end of that window?
Yeah, I was very happy. We Spurs were in an unprecedented state in terms of our transfer activity. We hadn't signed a player for over 500 days, 2 transfer windows, and we'd gone from that to breaking our transfer record by signing Ndombele, and eventually we'll break the transfer record again by signing Lo Celso. Currently he's on loan, but we got obligation to buy at the end of the season. So with those 2 signings, key signings, and the fact that we bought Sessegnon in as well and Jack Clark for the future, but more importantly, we're heavily linked, and with a legitimate chance of bringing in Dybala and Fernandes of Sporting, that it's clear that Spurs are making moves and we're back in the market again. Daniel Levy said that we've invested in our training centre. So 3 or 4 years ago, we created one of the best training centres, training grounds in Europe. Apparently, only equaled by Man City's. There's also there's also the fact that we've built an entire new stadium in North London,
which looks amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it is amazing. It looks amazing, looks the part, and it's not just about the game itself, it's before the game and after the game. People are coming to Tottenham, they're entering the stadium hours before the game starts.
It's the whole game experience from hours before kickoff. Yeah, Anfield has really improved with that as well over the last couple of years. It seems to be a major thing for clubs now.
Yeah, absolutely, and then that's how they make money. And look at that. And I'm an old school. I'm 37 years old. I've watched Spurs in Tottenham when I was paying £3 to get in on the door when I was in my early teens, to what it is now, where you're paying £60 for a game against Newcastle, and spending all your money inside the stadium. So football's changed immeasurably, and I don't necessarily agree with all of it. But in terms of a solid business practice for a club like Tottenham and any top club in Europe, getting fans in through the door, 60,000 people spending money for 2 hours before and 2 hours afterwards is, in terms of business, the correct way to conduct your activities. and that's what Spurs have done. But going back to the transfer market, we've been starved of transfer. The squad was starting to get stale. We brought in at least 2 key players and 2 players for the future, which will help us regenerate. But what I was saying about Levy is that he's invested in the youth setup in terms of the training facilities. He's invested in the stadium, and by his own words has said it's now time to invest in the squad. So Spurs has bought 2 key players, potentially 3 if Sessegnon kicks on. We've got the January transfer if we sign another player then, and then another 3 in the transfer window next summer. Then we're starting to kick into gear. The fact that we've even been able to maintain while this is going on and not signing players is fantastic. So yeah, look, I'm happy. I'm really happy, and I think that the real Tottenham Hotspur, or what we can possibly achieve this season, will be realised in September and October when Lo Celso and Ndombele are up to speed, and Vertonghen, Alderweireld and Eriksen, who had been mooted to potentially leave the club, are understanding the fact that they're staying with us to the end of the season because they can't go anywhere else now. Even if they leave on the free, they're with us and they're going to be playing, because who knows what clubs are going to come into at the end of the season. So we're going to have a motivated squad, and I think Tottenham are going to go on to do good things this year. We're not going to win the league, but we're going to do good things.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with most of what you said. I do believe I'm gonna be out straight with you. I think Liverpool and City are levels ahead of what else is in the league. I'm being honest with you. I just think the squads they have.
I don't disagree with
that. I think not only the level of squad they have, I think the experience they have. I think they're further down the road than a lot of squads. Now you could argue that Spurs squad has been together, but he's not revamped it during the summer, but he's signed in crucial areas, which can be hard. If you can get Ndombele and you can get Lo Celso going and you can get Sessegnon going in September, October, you'll be doing really, really well. I looked at the likes of Fabinho come into Liverpool and take 3 to 4 months to even be considered as a starter. It was something obvious, and it was something very methodical that Jurgen Klopp done with him. And we're reaping the benefits now. He's he's strolling around football pitches now as if he's played in the Premier League for 10 years. But just looking at the squad itself, like Lo Celso, I don't know a lot about. And Ndombele, I'd seen a little bit of with Lyon and was highly impressed. Sessegnon, I think, needed a move to a bigger club for the direction of his career. I think he may have gone stale at Fulham had he been there any longer. And Clark is another one that will come on as the seasons progress. But the one area I look at is right back. Now, I seen a comment in here earlier saying, don't play Davinson Sanchez a right back again. He looked out on his feet. People are giving out to me because I'm not reading the chats that are here. I'm actually taking note of what stuff people are saying because I want to ask it later on. So they need to stop giving out to me or I'll get very upset. But the one thing was right back, and I just want to get your feelings on this because there was some sort of rumour going around that, Trippier leaves and he's being kind of quoted as saying there was issues going on in the background. Pochettino comes out and starts talking about circumstances when they were beaten by Newcastle. Serge Aurier looks like a player that Spurs would like to get rid of, but I don't know how that happens now if he's under contract. And right back does look an issue. You've mentioned Vertonghen there missing for the first few games of the season. You have Alderweireld, I think, is he in his last year of a deal? There is a few question marks to be had around that. But right back in particular, were you surprised at what he done with that situation?
No, because Trippier was average at best last year. Forget whatever Trippier is saying. Trippier's going to push his own agenda. And by and large, if you speak to any Spurs fan, if we had the opportunity to sell Trippier at the end of the season for 21 million, you'd bitten their hands off. Because what people understand of Kieran Trippier is the goal that he scored against in the semi-finals against Croatia. Incredible free kick and a great performance from a right back for England during the World Cup. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't good enough for Tottenham last season.
No, I did see that mentioned quite a lot. In fairness,
levels of what you'd require. So you had an option. You had Atletico Madrid are willing to spend the money. We'll take that money and we'll trust in our two young players that they're going to fill the void left by Trippier. And it wasn't a gargantuan void. An easily replaceable position for us. So we had Carl Walker-Peters, who is more than capable of playing that role. He's just signed a 5-year deal last year, probably with the promise of the fact that this season he was going to get game time. He's 22, 23. This isn't a prospect. This is someone who's been under Pochettino's tutelage for many, many years and only didn't get game time because he had Carl Walker and Trippier in front of him. So Pochettino is looking at that situation and thinking, well, we're getting 20 plus million for Trippier, that's about his market value. He's getting on. We're not going to offer him a new contract with better wages. So we trust in the younger understudy that's coming through, who has going forward certainly doesn't have the delivery that Trippier does, but definitely has the dribbling technique and progression technique that we're looking for in our right backs to at least cover his position or do as well as Trippier did. So there's no issue about right back. The issue we've got, and the reason why Sanchez started against Arsenal at right back, actually, I was going to swear then. I have no idea.
Oh, you can swear if you like.
I have no fucking idea why Davinson Sanchez started right back against Arsenal.
No, because a few people on the chat here have said what was going on with Davinson Sanchez at right back. Well, he looked uncomfortable to begin with. Then he looked like he forgot he was playing right back, and then literally looked like he'd ran a marathon on about 70 minutes.
Look, a full-back position is completely different from a centre-back. Is it all we know? And I'm not professing to know more than Pochettino. I'm sure he had his reasons for playing him there. I don't know what those are, and I can never understand them. The reason why we're in a situation where Davinson Sanchez was playing right back in a game against our biggest rivals, the biggest game of the season, Arsenal away, for any Spurs fan, doesn't matter who says what about who our rivals are, who our main competitors are, who we hate. Arsenal away is the game, the only one we're really interested in. So to go into that game with Davinson Sanchez as right back against a forward line that cost 200 million to assemble, it was a result of the fact that Carl Walker-Peters was injured and Johan Foyth was injured also. So we had Eric Dyer also got injured in training this week. So we had no options. The only option we had, which would be more sensible in my eyes, would be Toby Alderweireld at right back because he's played there for Belgium, and Davinson Sanchez playing his natural position as a centre back. But Pochettino knows more than I do. So all I can say that he decided to pay.
He may have looked at it. He may have looked at it with the idea Aubameyang plays left side and Davinson Sanchez pace could do something. Take that danger away to some sort of degree, rather than Alderweireld, who I presume Davinson Sanchez has more pace than. It may have been something like that. I have to ask you this question, Flav, because we've got into this routine of asking every guest this question, right? So, and it will sound weird, but go with me. You're on top of a building, okay? It's a flat roofed building. There's another building across the way. How far could you jump between two buildings?
So there's two flat roof buildings.
Two flat roof buildings, and you have to jump from one to the other. How far away could them buildings be? Yeah, how far could you jump? Because the people in the chat are asking me. Ask them the building question.
No, fair enough. I get it. I understand what they want to know. I reckon I could comfortably do 7 feet. I could do 7 feet.
7 feet. Okay, that's not bad. So that's just over 2 meters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, no, I'm 37. I'm getting on.
So am I. Yeah,
in my prime, I could have done longer, but right now,
you can have as much of a run up as you like. Remember that, there's no restriction on the run up. So a lot of people like to know that. Let me see. There's a couple of people saying that they could jump. Oh, Stephen Mack says he can jump 8 foot from roof to roof. I think he said that before. You said 7.5. So I don't think there's any needle there. I don't think he's doing it just to upset you.
8 foot as well.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to add that the viewers are going to throw me stuff now because, as you would expect, most of them are Liverpool fans, but they're quite a knowledgeable group. I want to ask the viewers how they think Spurs will get on this season. and probably where they will come. I've tipped them to become third in the league. So, but I'd like to know what the viewers think with regards to Spurs' finish position.
Well,
But
I think that third would be an acceptable position for Spurs to finish this year. I think progress is really about whether or not we can close the gap on Liverpool and Man City, because it's clear that those two clubs are head and shoulders above everybody else. And that's come about because you have a supremely talented manager in Jurgen Klopp, who understands what he needs to fix in his squad. So Van Dijk, Alisson, and sort of reinvigorating that midfield with Keita and Fabinho. So his acquisitions in the transfer market turned Liverpool into a club that was top four material, like Tottenham are now, to a league title challenge in the space of one season. And that is an incredible feat, and one that can't be denied. And it's almost like, Liverpool a few seasons ago were behind Spurs, like where we were finishing. Like, it was, as a football club, as a global entity, perhaps not, but what was happening in the Premier League, they were behind, and Klopp came in and addressed what needed to be addressed, and has now become the only plausible challenger to a club that's completely financially doped. That it's almost unbelievable that there is a Premier League that is led by a team like Man City. It's unbelievable that it's got to this stage where they can just spend their way out of any situation.
You're playing against the might of a country. That's
Oh,
the realistic
yeah,
outcome
yeah.
of it. A lot of people here are tipping Spurs. CDN LFC Red says Spurs between third and fifth. Maverick says Spurs third. Kev O'Sullivan says I think Spurs will get third by default. I think what he's saying is that you're kind of in that area where Liverpool and City are there, and then Spurs are probably in that little gap on their own, and the rest on behind you. But he does mention one thing, and I will come back to in a second because it's something I wanted to discuss with regards to the start of the season. Barry Carr says Ndombele looks the business, but I don't think the other business Spurs have done is great. Looks like a battle for top four rather than automatic third. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, obviously, on Ndombele and Lo Celso anyway. We've seen what Sessegnon can do with Fulham. I think he could go up another level with a better team around him, and he does have a better team with regards to Spurs. But one of the listeners touched on something there, and I wanted to go back to with regards to how the season's gone so far. Harry Kane, okay? Mm-hmm. Brilliant goal scorer. People call him a one season wonder. I think I think he might have scored about, would it be Virgin?
He's got 30 goals a season for 4 seasons. So
yeah, okay, so there you go. It's over 100 goals. It's a phenomenal strike rate. Let's be perfectly honest about it. And only Mohamed Salah has stopped him from another 2 golden boots. Would I be right in saying? Beat him the season before last and came level with him. Was it last season?
Is this no. Is this going to lead to Harry Kane's diving?
No. I don't want to go into that.
Okay.
I don't go into that thing because all you get is comparisons between, well, if Salah done that and if Kane done that and stuff like that. So I don't want to go into that at all. I just want to go into, and it's just from watching Spurs, because I watched them against Villa. I just happen to have seen a lot of Spurs, to be honest with you. I've watched them against Villa. I watched them against Man City, and I watched them against Arsenal. I didn't see their game against Newcastle when they were beaten.
It was poor.
Does Harry Kane's, I suppose not his form, he has a couple of goals, but does his demeanour or his fitness or anything give you anything to be concerned about? Because for me, he does look a little bit off the pace.
No, not really. No, I mean, the challenge we've had this season was that there was the first challenge against Newcastle, against Villa, we absolutely destroyed them in the second half, and the fact that we scored 3 goals to beat them on the opening day of the season was completely justified and as you would expect, and what we deserved. It was only because it took such a performance in the second half to beat Villa as a newcoming team into the Premier League that there were any questions. But overall, the performance against them was excellent, in my opinion. The Man City game, and he scored 2 goals in that game. The Man City game, they are and will continue to dominate many, many teams, and they are a great footballing side, Man City, because the amount of money that's been pumped into them. we managed to get a scraper draw out of that. That game was never going to be one that Harry Kane or any of our other players were going to be covered in glory in, because we got dominated ultimately. Newcastle, they had such a low block, such a defensive outlook, that once they scored, it was that, you know, we had 80% possession over 90 minutes, over 45 minutes in the second half. It was they just give it to us, and we just didn't have the guile and ingenuity and plan to break them down. It wasn't down to Harry Kane at all. And I think because Harry Kane is so good, and the levels that you set are so high, and the bar that you set are so high, is that whenever he might go a game or two without scoring, there are questions to be asked about him.
Very fair point.
Yeah, you know, the same questions were asked to Salah. You know, his second syndrome, he's not as good, and then he ends up being top goal scorer again. So, you know, like, it's easy to ask these questions, but the fact is, he's a great striker, one of the best in Europe. He will always deliver in the end. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to go through the season without scoring 25 goals. And to have a player like that who can guarantee you that over a season, it means that that you can forgive him for having a couple of quiet games, especially when a team like Newcastle turn up, or Burnley turn up, and just stink the place out.
Yeah, do you know what? Like, it's a very fair point you've made. You know, if he drops any sort of level at any stage, people will question him simply because of the player he is and the standards he set. That's an absolutely fair point to make. I'm while you were talking there, I was just thinking about the games I've watched, and I don't know. Maybe is he just not? I'm not going to say working as hard. You know, a few people have said here he doesn't look fit, and maybe that is a thing that could be thrown at him because of the way they're playing. But for me, Harry Kane is the sort of guy that runs the channels, gets hold of the ball, brings player into play. You know that way, and he's a really good link-up man as well as being a really good goal scorer in and around the box. Could it be something that is just a slight change in tactics where he's told to stay more central for more of the game? Could that be just the way it is, and we're just kind of seeing it slightly different?
I think the formations that we're playing and the way we're playing, it means that the more emphasis has to go on other elements of the formation or tactical plan. That he is asked to stay up top, and that if he does drop deep to get the ball, and he desperately wants it, he wants the ball at his feet all the time, that it might be out of frustration that he does sort of break ranks and does drop deep. I just really, I don't know what other people are saying outside the club. There is no conversation within the Tottenham fan base and on our podcast where we feel like there's any issue around Kane at all.
Yeah, no, it's just something I've just kind of watched during the Spurs game, and like I've always watched Kane and thought he's brilliant at running the channels. He's actually brilliant at running the channels, committing defenders, and I'm not going to go into a diving issue, but he's actually good at getting free kicks from these areas, and you know, and
we can, mate. He does go over easy. He does go over easy. He does fall in a certain way in the penalty box that would make it look like he was simulating. And I can understand why other fans look at him and go, yeah, he's diving. But really, fundamentally, no fan of any club can be completely honest and say that they don't care, like that they genuinely care if their players are going over and win a penalty. Like, Kane is not going to simulate when he's not touched by a foot. But if he feels like he can win a penalty by placing his body in the same way and then going over, he will do it like any other forward, like a decent forward in the world. No honest forward ever got to the very top of the game. Neymar dives, Messi dives, Suarez dives, Salah dives. Harry Kane dives. I'm not going to deny it. He does. Yeah. I don't care when he does, because I don't really care about the feelings and opinions of other fans. I care about us winning the game, and if we can get a penalty like against Arsenal, honestly, mate, I hate them so much that if we would have got a penalty in the last minute and didn't deserve it, it would be better.
Yeah, no, I absolutely am.
You know what I mean?
It's absolutely like Maverick here said, it's not diving, it's drawing the foul. You know, just going, and I really don't want to get into a diving conversation, but the incident against Arsenal the other day, the funny thing is, if he hadn't have moved towards that defender, okay, and if he had not made that move towards the defender, and the defender, his arms were coming anyway, his hands were coming on his back anyway, and he'd just stumbled forward, he would have got a penalty. he
Yeah,
would have got a
maybe.
penalty. But that
Maybe.
that movement towards the defender, the touch, and then I think not even the stumble forward. It's the legs losing, going up in the
Yeah.
air.
No, what he does is he puts both feet in the ground
Yeah,
and then goes over.
yeah.
I'm fine with it. I don't care. I don't
Yeah,
care that he
either the
does
way.
it.
To be honest with you, either the way. Because, like, I'm being honest with you, if Mo Salah dives and gets away
You
with it,
take it.
even after VAR, and Liverpool get a penalty to win the league on the last
Who
day of the
gives a
season in the
shit?
94th minute, I could not care less what he's done.
Exactly, mate.
So,
Exactly. And here we can embrace in a equivalent viewpoint on diving, because there isn't a single fan under the earth, under the sun on this earth, who really cares whether or not there's simulation when they win the penalty, because that's
absolutely.
the game. That's the game, man.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Just before we finish, I've asked a few people what they feel like with Spurs and what they'll do. A couple have said a domestic trophy. They feel Spurs will win a domestic trophy this season. So I'm presuming you would absolutely take that. But
I'd take it, but isn't a barometer of our success.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
I think a
the
domestic
only
trophy
two.
would be good as a stepping
Yeah,
stone towards
it
bigger
would.
things.
Well, it may be. I mean, look, we've got to a situation without winning a trophy where the FA Cup and the League Cup don't really mean anything to us anymore.
Yeah,
Like, it means as fans, as I couldn't speak of anything better of going to Wembley and watching Spurs win the FA Cup. But as a football club, winning an FA Cup or a League Cup doesn't progress us. If Klopp wins a League Cup this season and finishes eighth, there'll be talk about whether or not he should keep his job. And the same thing with Pochettino. The only two trophies that matter to Pochettino and our board are the Champions League and the Premier League. That's all that matters. And we can go close to winning those, like within touching distance as we did last year. And that's worth more than winning a League Cup. As fans, we want it because we want the glory. But in terms of the way football is run now, there's only two trophies that matter.
absolutely.
And,
Yeah,
there's only, with Man City and Liverpool in the league, Spurs are not going to win the Premier League, and we're not going to win the Champions League. So it doesn't matter whether we win a domestic trophy.
yeah.
Really.
Kev O'Sullivan says the problem with is when the refs don't give the genuine ones. That's a fair point as well. Barry Carr says Gav can't recall a single solid dive. That's because I'm a Liverpool fan and I'm going to look at it the way Flav looks at Harry Kane and go, no,
God
don't
bless
care, don't care.
Don't care.
You're absolutely spot on there. Kadir says top four in a domestic cup for Spurs. Let me see. Maverick says the domestic cups are now symbolic for Liverpool, not must-haves. And yeah, I think when you're in the Champions League, any team that are regularly in the Champions League, domestic cups become that because of the money and the prestige, and stuff like that. But before you go, Flav, it's been a great conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Just your prediction on the top four in order. What would they be for come the end of the season?
It will be at the start of the season. I said Liverpool, Man City, Spurs, and Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to, just purely based on the performance that Man City had against Spurs, how completely dominated we were.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say Man City are going to win the league, and although I generally hope that isn't the case, but I think Man City will finish top, Liverpool will comfortably finish second, and my hope is that Spurs close the gap between the two. And unfortunately, because Man United have hired Solskjaer and they're a fucking mess, and that if they finish in the top four, it'd be a miracle. And Chelsea in the same situation. They can't sign anyone. They have a novice manager, a manager who's managed 54 league games or whatever it was for Derby last year. Forget it, it's Frank Lampard, is a novice. So yeah, the top four will be Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal. That's my opinion.
Okay, nice to see a Spurs fan wanting Arsenal back in the Champions League.
I don't want them. I actually do not want
yeah,
them.
it's just the way things have fallen, and this is, I suppose, is why I want to have chats with. I'm going to have chats with Man City fans, United, Arsenal, Everton, Leicester fans, because I feel that this top four, top six is way more open this season than it has been, simply because of the circumstances you've just
Absolutely.
you've just spoken about.
I think we could conceivably see a top six that involves Leicester and Everton.
Yeah, we absolutely could. We absolutely could, if especially if the likes of, say, Arsenal and if Arsenal United were to go quite deep in they're both in Europa League, aren't they? If they were to go quite deep in that, you could probably see them prioritising that as their way into the Champions League, much like United done a couple of seasons ago, and Arsenal tried to last season. So we will have to wait and see. Flav, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining me. I'll have you on again at some stage throughout the season, if possible. But that's been the Fatback 4 Daily for Thursday. No, it's not Thursday. No, it's definitely not. It's Wednesday, the 4th of September. Thanks for joining us. Over now.